Naval forces from the three countries are staging joint drills in the Gulf of Oman this week, China's defense ministry has said. China and Iran have remained allies with Russia during the invasion of Ukraine, with Iran supplying drones to Moscow that have been used on Ukrainian territory. Beijing has not supplied weapons to Russia or overtly supported the invasion, but it has maintained close trade ties and has refused to condemn the war. Other countries are also taking part in the Security Bond 2023 exercises, the Chinese Defense Ministry added. This exercise will help deepen practical cooperation between the participating countries' navies and inject positive energy into regional peace and stability, it said in a statement. The exercises come amid heightened tensions between the US and China. Russia, China, and Iran held similar drills last year and in 2019. US-Russia relations are currently at their lowest level, the Kremlin has said. Yesterday, Washington accused Moscow of downing one of its spy drones over the Black Sea. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said there had been no high-level contact with the US over the incident, although he said Russia would never refuse to engage in constructive dialogue. President Vladimir Putin today hosted Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in the Kremlin after he arrived in Moscow yesterday. The focus of talks between the two was expected to be on rebuilding Syria following the civil war and mending the country's ties with Turkey. Russia has backed a military campaign in Syria since 2015, teaming up with Iran to allow Mr. Assad's government to fight back against armed opposition in the civil war that began in 2011 as a pro-democracy uprising. While Russia has now put the bulk of its military resources into Ukraine, Moscow has maintained its military foothold in Syria and kept warplanes and troops at its bases there. Welcoming the president, Mr. Putin emphasized the Russian military's decisive contribution to stabilizing the country. Mr. Assad also thanked Mr. Putin for backing Syria's sovereignty and territorial integrity, noting that the Kremlin's support has remained strong despite the fighting in Ukraine. Russia was also mediating talks between Turkey and Syria prior to the earthquake that struck the Turkey-Syria border in early February. Syria has demanded that Turkey withdraws its support of armed opposition groups which sought to overturn Mr. Assad's government. The Syrian, Turkish and Russian deputy foreign ministers as well as a senior advisor to their Iranian counterpart were expected to hold talks on Wednesday and Thursday in Moscow to discuss counter-terrorism efforts in Syria. Yet Syria's Deputy Foreign Minister Ayman Sosan was quoted by pro-government media as saying that the meeting is still under discussion. The UK Defence Secretary, Ben Wallace, said Russia should respect international airspace when reacting to the crash of the US MQ-9 drone. Mr. Wallace said, "The Americans have said they think it is unprofessional. The key here is that all parties respect international airspace, and we urge the Russians to do so." Tuesday's incident, involving Russian Su-27 fighter jets and a U.S. military MQ-9 drone, is the first time the two powers have come into direct contact since the Ukraine war started last year. American officials say two Russian fighter jets deliberately intercepted the unmanned aerial vehicle, while Moscow claims the U.S. was flying too close to its territory. Following the incident, Russian Ambassador Anatoly Antonov was summoned to the U.S., where he said Russia does not want any direct confrontation with Washington. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the crash of an MQ-9 drone into the Black Sea is being investigated. Declining to speak about the suspected intent behind the incident, Mr. Blinken described it as reckless and unsafe. Mr. Blinken's comments come on the same day that Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov accused the U.S. of ignoring the fact that Russia had established airspace restrictions in the area where the drone was being flown. He said that after the start of the conflict in Ukraine, Russia established limits on flights in the Black Sea region, a fact that the U.S. was aware of. Yesterday, the Defense Ministry in Moscow insisted the warplanes did not come into contact with the drone, claiming it crashed due to sharp maneuvering, leading to a loss of altitude.